Welcome to the Mental Militia, uniting minds and freeing souls from the bonds of mental slavery and ruling class manipulation.
Hello, this is Lord Williams of the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition. Hello. I hope you are having a jolly old day. So I bought this kind of steampunk, like royal kind of regal. I bought another thing. You can see it right here on the video. I bought another costume, a king costume. And I bought this. This is like a steampunk, kind of king costume just to kind of get popping for everything I have going on with the Amnesty Coalition and everything. The date on this, as you guys can see, is June 8th, 2024. We're almost 2 years after the launch of the free Contract Killer course. I'm here today because my clients, of which I have very few, and also anyone else I talk to, do not seem to want to go through UCC Article 3. So this video here is going to be me, and I'm going to walk you through, hold your dick, quote unquote, through UCC Article 3, because it seems like no one's able to do it by themselves. And as much as that irritates me, I guess you hit a certain point where, just the way it is. It's the way it's going to be. So, yeah. We're going to walk through UCC 3 together, and I'm going to give you all of my little ideas. Some of these things are a little complicated, so, if we go through this and you're not in agreement with me, you should read it all still. But as of now, just recently I started to get a lot more understanding of the difference between unconditional and conditional when it comes to promises to pay and orders to pay. So just kind of still learning a lot about this myself. I don't know everything there is, but I do know quite a bit, and quite a bit more than most people. I would agree with that. So this video is just going to be a UCC breakdown to the best of my ability, UCC 3 breakdown, and hopefully it will spark you guys into a whole new level of understanding. So this is the old school style, like what I was doing at the course, where I have this back and forth. I can go on this cameras, right? So let's go to UCC 3. We're going to start, and we're going to go through all of UCC 3. So it might be a bit of a long video, but, get your popcorn or whatever. So, first thing we're going to look at is UCC 3-102. It says here, this article applies to negotiable instruments. It does not apply to money. If there is a conflict between this article and Article 4 or Article 9, Articles 4 and 9 govern. I don't really know where that would be a good example, but there you go. And regulations of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System and operating circulars of the Federal Reserve Bank supersede any inconsistent provision from this article. So the OC-10 agreement is the agreement that you're going to file to get access to the Federal Reserve discount window. OC stands for operating circular, as you can see here. So what they're talking about here is they're talking about those operating circulars, which obviously are updated more often than the UCC is. For a lot of people too who are saying, the UCC doesn't apply in this state and that state. Yes, it does. All of this information we're going to be going into in all of these UCCs does apply in your state. It just may not be called the UCC. It's the same shit. It's going to be the same thing everywhere. By saying, oh, my state doesn't operate under the UCC. Okay, that means that your state doesn't accept Federal Reserve notes. Does your state accept Federal Reserve notes? Do they use Federal Reserve notes in your state? Okay, great. Then they use the UCC. They don't call it the UCC It's the same shit. Endorsements, negotiability, blank endorsement, special endorsements, all the same shit. It just may not be called the Uniform Commercial Code. It's just going to be some local statutes that mirror the UCC. So don't let anybody fucking knock you off the path on this. Well, I'm showing you the goddamn Bible, okay? And if you think that's not, or if you assume it's not, or if you let anyone knock you off the path that it is, you're just going to fucking fail, and fuck you, and you should just go jam a goddamn cucumber up your ass, fuck you, because there's nothing I can do about that. You're fucking weak-willed. You're a fucking limp dick piece of shit, and maybe you should go off and fucking spend more time building your self-esteem and not fucking bitch and moan and complain to me that some fucking federal judge called you a fucking cocksucking retarded piece of shit, and your behavior was aligned with what you were being called, okay? All right. So that's it. Let's go back to UCC 3. We've got definitions, all sorts of fun definitions. We have an acceptor, which is a drawee, which has accepted a draft. What is drawee? We're going to look that up by clicking it. It means a person ordered in a draft to make a payment. So drawee means the person who's being ordered to unconditionally pay. So an acceptor is, and I'm just doing all this on the fly. I haven't looked at this necessarily in great detail. An acceptor means somebody who has been instructed to unconditionally pay, who has accepted the document of which tells them unconditionally to pay. Very simple. Accepted means delivery, by the way. We're going to go to the Bill of Exchange Act of 1882. We're probably going to see this mirrored in UCC 3. Acceptance means acceptance completed by delivery or notification. Oh, interesting. Notification. Interesting. I don't remember seeing that. Notification. Okay. Well, that's pretty fucking broad. I don't know what to tell you. Acceptance means an acceptance completed by delivery or notification. So even if you notify someone, then it's technically an acceptance, I guess. Consumer account means an account established by an individual primarily for personal, family, or household purposes. Now that's interesting. That would not be commercial necessarily. I don't know how that would apply. I know this sort of terminology is used in UCC 9 and stuff like that, so I don't know. It's also used in Title 15 for credit and stuff like that, consumer credit and all that. Kind of interesting. We're looking at what seems like a non-commercial aspect here. Consumer transaction means a transaction in which an individual incurs an obligation, primarily for personal, family, or household purposes. Interesting. Now, it does say primarily. So it does not exclusively mean non-commercial, but it is referring to more of a non-commercial idea, obviously, right? Consumer transaction. Drawee means a person ordered in a draft to make a payment. Drawer means a person who signs or is identified in a draft as a person ordering payment. So the person who orders is the drawer, and the person who is being ordered unconditionally to pay is the drawee. Now, this is in reference to a bill of exchange or draft or check. Bill of exchange is an unconditional order to pay. A draft or a check is also an unconditional order to pay. So I hope you guys are tracking with that. Well, we'll get into that more, obviously, as we go through UCC 3. Maker means a person who signs or is identified in a note as a person undertaking to pay. So a maker would be the person who's endorsing the instrument, right? Well, it'd be the all caps ens legis public corporation, okay? That's the person who's identified in a note as a person undertaking to pay, okay? Order means a written instruction to pay money signed by the person giving the instruction. Instruction may be addressed to any person, including the person giving the instruction, or to one or more persons jointly, or in the alternative, but not in succession. An authorization to pay is not an order unless the person authorized to pay is also instructed to pay. So just because they're allowed to pay doesn't make it an order. They have to be instructed to pay. So this is interesting. Okay, I do not. When you teach these things, I learn shit too. Okay, because now I gotta think about it and figure out a way to fucking pitch it to some fuck that wants to jam a cucumber up their ass. So I gotta figure out, like, how do I fucking pitch this to someone who wants to sit on a cucumber and have it fucking feel the girthiness up their asshole. The thing is that, an authorization to pay is not an order unless the person authorized to pay is also instructed to pay. This is very interesting. I'm looking at a lot of this now because case one was just dismissed with prejudice, as many of you know, and I've been looking at this a lot recently, and one of the reasons why I'm making this video is because I really, really need to dig into this. And I know very, very, very few people have. And the people who have, that I've seen, are very difficult to listen to. You listen to their videos and you're like, Jesus fuck, I want to kill myself. It's not easy to listen to some of these people. It's how do I... Now I have to go into court and I have to explain these things and do these things in a way where I'm selling this to the court, or I'm going to go in front of the jury or whatever. So I got to get better at understanding this stuff, and I got to get better at being able to explain this stuff in a way that's simple, ground floor, and anyone can understand it. So that's kind of like the motivation behind why I'm making this video anyways. So here we go. So a bill of exchange is an unconditional order to pay, which is a negotiable instrument. So we have this really interesting aspect here. An authorization to pay is not an order unless the person authorized to pay is also instructed to pay. So you may pay $20, would not be an order. It's, look a bitch, pay $20 right now before Friday or we're going to fucking kill you. That's an order. They have to be instructed to pay. So if you're in a courtroom and you're being told that you need to pay money, you want to get a bill of exchange that says, fuck you, motherfucker, Brandon Joe Williams, you need to pay or we're going to sanction you. We are going to arrest you and murder you if you do not pay $20 by June 14th. That's what you want. You want a unconditional, clear instruction, not an authorization or recommendation. Okay? You guys are all scared and the IRS sends you, fuck you, we're gonna garnish your way. That's what you want. That is what you want. You want, fuck you, piece of shit. We're gonna garnish your fucking wages, you cocksucking, pathetic, loser piece of shit. That's what you want. Because that means you have in your hand an unconditional order to pay, and now you can perform. If it's an authorization to pay, you can't perform on it. It's not a negotiable instrument. You want something that unconditionally instructs you to pay. Payment means performance, to perform on a duty, obligation, or contract. Okay, I hope you guys are following. I'm learning too. I'm not expecting everything from you guys. I'm learning too. I just, I guess for whatever reason, you guys coming on here and reading all this is just too much. It's okay. That's why I'm here. I'm not thrilled about it. I'm not thrilled about the fact that I have to fucking do this. I'm going to learn, you're going to learn, and everything's going to be good at the end of the day. But I'm telling you, the fact that I have to keep telling people to read UCC Article 3 and no one does it, it's kind of depressing. We're never going to fucking win. But it's okay. Here I am trying my best. Hopefully, maybe this video will give you enough understanding and enough steam to where you feel more confident to come in here and read UCC 3. You really should be reading UCC 3 multiple times, many, many times, over and over and over and over. I'm reading it A lot of the unconditional stuff, conditional versus unconditional, UCC 3-106, which is what case 1 was thrown out on. In my opinion, it's the only real aspect of the case at all that has any real merit that was dismissed, is UCC 3-106. The judge was correct, and I didn't realize that. Now I'm still looking over the bills of exchange, and I'm still doing some stuff, and we're still going to come back most likely with reconsideration and appeals and all the good stuff. But the fact that the judge said that the promissory notes specifically, not the bills of exchange, the promissory notes specifically that had been mentioned in the original complaint are conditional. And at this point in time, after doing a lot of research and after doing a lot of searching, I will acquiesce to that idea, and I do agree with the federal judge, Miss Susan, or whatever her name was, Miss whatever, I forget her name. So one of the reasons why I'm doing this video is because I need to learn more, and I need to get deeper into this, and you guys are really slacking. So it's just we're all kind of coming together here, okay? Okay. Number 9, ordinary care. In the case of a person engaged in business, means observance of reasonable commercial standards prevailing in the area where the person is located with respect to the business where the person is located. In the case of a bank that takes an instrument for processing, for collection or payment by automated means, reasonable commercial standards do not require the bank to examine the instrument. If the failure to examine does not violate the bank's prescribed procedures and the bank's procedures do not vary unreasonably from the general banking usage, not disapproved by this article or Article 4. Okay. I don't, just like the normal run-of-the-mill reasonable commercial standards do not require the bank to examine the instrument. So I guess they're talking about just fully automated systems. I'm not entirely sure on this one, so whatever. Party means a party to an instrument. I love how, this is the indication of an amateur or a retard or somebody who's actually psychotic. They use the same fucking word in the definition to define the word. Like, that's insane. Like, that is a whole lawsuit right there. Party.
If you think that all is lost, that every dream has faded, that the last light of hope is gone, think again. It's there within you, something that can never die.
You can live again.
The power.
Live again.
To rise. To create. To live again.
You can live again. You can live again. You can stand on your own 2 feet. You can rise up from any defeat. You can live.
Because nothing is more powerful than you.
Live again. Live again. Live again.
What's the definition of the word party? Stop everything. We're going to talk about this for the next fucking 3 days. What in the fuck? You don't define a word using the word. That means that just means you're a fucking infant or person of unsound mind. You're psychotic, you're insane, and you're a ward of the court. Whoever wrote this is a fucking ward of the court, okay? Anyways, very irritating. Number 11. Principal obligor. With respect to an instrument, it means the accommodated party or any other party to the instrument against whom a secondary obligor has recourse under this article. We would need to look up all these accommodated party somebody else who has recourse to the instrument. I don't know. We'll probably figure that out as we go more, right? Promise. Means a written, very interesting. It says here written. There's another part in UCC 3 where it says that, maybe it's tender. A tender can be verbal. Maybe it's tender. Never mind. I'm jumping the gun here. Means a written undertaking to pay money signed by the person undertaking to pay. An acknowledgement of an obligation by the obligor is not a promise unless the obligor also undertakes to pay the obligation. Payment means performance. So even in a traffic ticket, promising to show up at a certain location, a courtroom at a certain time and date, would be undertaking to pay the obligation. So even if it's a promise to show up at court, it's still a promise to pay. It's still a promise. It's still a negotiable instrument. It's still a promissory note. Okay? Prove, it's just referring to something else. Remitter means a person who purchases an instrument from its issuer if the instrument is payable to an identified person other than the purchaser. Interesting. This is only going to apply for if you do a special endorsement, if you state the payee on the original instrument. Remitter. It's interesting because a lot of the bills that you get say remittance or bill remittance or whatever. So it's fascinating that I've never really fully seen this. This is pretty wild. So what this is saying, as far as I'm concerned, is it means a person who essentially purchases an instrument from the issuer if the instrument states a payee, meaning it has a special endorsement, which is fascinating. That's very interesting. I'm going to have to use that in my litigation. Remotely created consumer item means an item drawn on a consumer account which is not created by the payor bank and does not bear a handwritten signature purporting to be a signature of the drawer. Remotely created consumer item. I don't know. It's not created by the bank and does not bear a handwritten signature. I don't know. I couldn't give you an example of that, but whatever. Secondary obligor. An endorser. Any other party to the instrument that has recourse against another party. Okay. And then here we have a bunch of other definitions that are all found in other areas of UCC, which we'll get into as we go. Okay, so that's 3-103. Let's go back to, we'll do 104. Now here's 104. This is very common. This is the one I talk a lot about on shows, okay? This is the one that defined the negotiable instrument as a unconditional promise or order to pay a fixed amount with or without interest or other charges. It's got to be either payable to bearer or payable to order at the time it is issued. It's got to be payable on demand or at a definite time. And does not state any other undertaking or instruction by the person promising or ordering payment to do any act in addition to the payment of money. But the promise or order may contain 1, an undertaking to or power to give, maintain, or protect collateral or secure payment. 2, an authorization or power to the holder to confess judgment, or I don't know what this means, but it does not state any other condition that has to be made before it can take place. This is what I've been dealing with recently with my case 1. It's got to be unconditional, which we're going to get into more in 3-106. Okay. So instrument means a negotiable instrument, which is interesting. That means that basically all instruments are negotiable instruments, which is kind of interesting. Okay. Talking about an order. A promise or order other than a check is not an instrument if at the time it is issued or first comes into possession of a holder, it contains a conspicuous statement, however expressed to the effect that the promise or order is not negotiable. So if it says not negotiable, then it would be not negotiable, essentially. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Okay. I'm learning. An instrument is a note if it is a promise and a draft if it is an order. A lot of people hear the word check or draft. Check or draft and bill of exchange all mean the same thing. It's an unconditional order to pay. And like we saw earlier, order doesn't mean authorization. It means specific, like fuck you, pay now, bitch, or we'll kill you kind of a thing. That's an extreme example, but I'm just telling you. Note if it's a promise. Now, this is interesting. If an instrument falls within the definition of both note and draft, the person who's entitled to enforce the instrument may treat it as either. Okay? And person entitled to enforce means the holder of the instrument, a non-holder who is in possession of the instruments who has the rights of a holder, or a person who is not in possession of the instrument who is entitled to enforce the instrument. So when they slide the mortgage documents across the table and they say, sign here, Mr. Williams, you are the person entitled to enforce that instrument at that moment. So you can treat, if it's a note and a draft, you can treat it as either one in that moment. Okay? Check means draft, like I told you, same thing. Payable on demand and drawn at a bank. It also means a cashier's check. An instrument may be a check, even though it is described on its face by another term, such as money order. Yeah, that's why this is all so confusing. A lot of these terms all mean the same thing. I mean, really, truly, it's actually very simple. A promise to pay is a promissory note. An order to pay is a bill of exchange. And every single fucking thing, all you got to do is say, is this thing a promise to pay or order to pay? You're looking at a check, and it says, fuck you, bank, pay this guy this amount right now. That means it's an order to pay. So rather than saying check or draft, you can just say bill of exchange. It's very simple. A bill of exchange is an unconditional order to pay. So is a check, so is a draft. If it's a promise to pay of some sort, it'd be a promissory note. I mean, if you want to keep it simple, it's just one or the other. All these other terms are all just bullshit. They're all just horse shit. They all mean the same thing. Bill of exchange, draft, and check. Maybe there's a slight difference, possibly, if you were to get into them in great detail, but they pretty much mean the same thing. Cashier's check, teller's check, traveler's check, certificate of deposit. Means an instrument containing an acknowledgement by a bank that a sum of money has been received by the bank and a promise by the bank to repay the sum of money. Interesting. So a certificate of deposit would be a promise, a promissory note by definition, which is crazy. I didn't know that. Again, I'm learning here. I don't even know what is a certificate of deposit. Let's see. Oh. CDs. Okay, I've heard of those. Like 20 years ago. Okay, so we're talking about something specific. All right. Let's move on. Issue of instrument. Issue means the first delivery of an instrument by the maker or drawer, whether to a holder or non-holder, for the purpose of giving rights on the instrument to any person. An unissued instrument or an unissued incomplete instrument that is completed is binding on the maker or drawer, but non-issuance is a defense. An instrument that is conditionally issued or is issued for a special purpose is binding on the maker or drawer, but failure of the condition or special purpose to be fulfilled as a defense. I don't totally get that, but whatever. Issuer applies to issued and unissued instruments and means a maker or drawer of the instrument. Okay. Issuer is somebody who makes it or draws it. And drawer means the person who signs or is identified in a draft is the person ordering. So the one who's ordering is the issuer. Okay. The maker or the orderer would be another word for drawer. Okay. That's the issuer of the instrument. Okay. So when they send you when your phone bill, and they send you a phone bill, T-Mobile is the issuer of the bill of exchange. Okay. This is the part that I really had to review over the past couple of days in vast detail to the point where my head was fucking smoking. This is talking a lot about the conditional versus unconditional aspects. Okay. Except as provided in this section for the purposes, a promise or order is unconditional unless it states an express condition to payment, that the promise or order is subject to or governed by another record, or that the rights or obligations with respect to the promise or order are stated in another record. Okay. In case number one, this first point is an issue. There are express conditions to payment, which is what the federal judge was talking about in her orders and dismissal. Okay. A promise or order is not made conditional by reference to another record with respect to collateral, prepayment, or acceleration. So it's just saying there are conditions that would not make the entire instrument conditional. So if those points are involving collateral or prepayment or acceleration, that wouldn't make the whole instrument conditional, because that would not make it a negotiable instrument if it was conditional. Okay. If a promise or order requires as a condition to payment a counter signature by a person whose would not make it a negotiable instrument if it was conditional. Okay. If a promise or order requires as a condition to payment a counter signature by a person whose specimen signature appears on the promise or order, that condition does not make the promise or order conditional. So if someone else has to sign, but you signed it already, it doesn't mean that because they never signed, then the instrument is not conditional, okay, or is conditional, okay. If the person whose specimen signature appears on an instrument fails to countersign the instrument, the failure to countersign is a defense, and you can blah, 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 blah. So it's saying you can just figure that out in litigation or whatever, okay. If a promise or order at the time it is issued or first comes in the position of a holder contains a statement required by applicable statutory administrative law to the effect that the rights of a holder or transferee are subject to claims or defenses that the issuer could assert against the original payment. To the effect that the rights of the holder. I'm not totally sure on this one. This could be some kind of conditional endorsement. I'm not totally sure on this one. I'm going to skip that one for now. I'm not totally sure. Again, this is not, I don't know everything. Okay. Instrument payable in foreign money. Unless the instrument otherwise provides, an instrument that states the amount payable in foreign money may be paid in the foreign money or in an equivalent amount in dollars calculated by using the current bank offered spot rate at the place of payment for the purchase of dollars on the day of which the instrument is paid. That's just talking about currency exchange. This is very interesting. It has to the instrument has to be payable on demand or at a definite time. We talked about that earlier. A promise or order is payable on demand if it states that it is payable on demand or at sight, or otherwise indicates that it is payable at the will of the holder, or does not state any time of payment. Oh, this is very interesting. Okay. Holy shit, I'm going to actually, wow. I'm actually going to use this on case number 1. The federal judge said that in order for it to be a promise to pay, it has to state that it's payable on demand or at a definite time. No, it doesn't, apparently. Because if it does not state any time of payment, then it is payable on demand automatically as a default. Now that is, oh God, that is really getting my gears a-turning. Boy. That alone is for me worth doing this video. Wow. Wow. That's, woo, my head is spinning. Woo, does not state any time of payment. Means it's payable on demand. So I got a federal motherfucking judge. She's actually a semi-retired judge. She's been doing this for so fucking long. She didn't even know this. Interesting. She thinks I'm a sovereign citizen, though. And I'm not a sovereign citizen. I'm a sovereign citizen. Sovereign citizen. Just to be serious for a moment, I am a non-citizen national of the United States in accordance with Title 8, United States Code, Section 1101, subsection A22B. So the term sovereign citizen would not apply to me at all. I am the king of the Amnesty Coalition, which is a foreign government legally, as per the definition found in 18 USC 11. And I am an ambassador at large, meaning that I am not specifically representing any explicit country. And I am a national, a non-citizen national of 3 different nations. One being the Amnesty Coalition, one being the Republic of Sojamistan, and the other one being the United States of America. If I don't say that, some fucking retard that can't process sarcasm is going to go, oh my God, and blah, blah, blah. And the defense attorneys that can't think, all they do is copy and paste all day long, copy and paste so they can create all their irrelevant billables. We live in a clown world, so I got to make sure that I fucking state everything, clearly. Okay. So this is amazing. My mind is like shredded right now. Like I feel like I'm like, oh my God. So if there is no time or date of payment, then that means that it's payable on demand, which is like just shredding me right now. Oh my God. Okay. All right. Let's go. A promise or order is payable at a definite time if it is payable on elapse of a definite period of time after sight or acceptable or at a fixed date or dates or at a time of times or times readily ascertainable at the time the promise or order is issued. This is when it says, this is when you get a bill in the mail for your phone bill or whatever, and it says, you need to pay $77 by October 13th, you fucking bitch. That's payable at a definite time. Now, you might get a bill that says payable on demand. If it doesn't have a payable by date, let's say, a lot of these like small plumbers and stuff like that, they'll give you a bill and it doesn't really have, it may have something on there, payable within 90 days or 180 days. But let's say, for example, you get something and it just doesn't really have the time of payment. Well, shockingly, I'm shocked right now. I am like blown away. I am like so excited. I'm getting a lot of ideas right now. It becomes payable on demand, which means payable at the will of the holder.
It's time to rediscover the human soul. Not the mystical, the metaphysical, or the supernatural. We're talking about the source of your abilities, your motivation, your vitality. The thing that makes you, you. We're offered a dream of convenience, but what of self-fulfillment, happiness, peace of mind? No more speculating. No more of this or this, but this. It's time to find out for yourself. To look. To know. It's time to rediscover the human soul.
You are in possession of the instrument. Holder means the person who's in possession of the instrument. Okay? God, I fucking love Zevias, man. Oof. Okay. If an instrument payable at a fixed date is also payable upon demand made before the fixed date, the instrument is payable on demand until the fixed date. And if demand for payment is not made before that date, becomes payable at a definite time. You can pay anytime you want before the date. Payable on demand, payable at will of the holder up until the date. I mean, it's very simple. It sounds complicated. It's very simple. Very, very simple. They're just trying to make it sound complex. It's not complex. It's very simple. Everyone knows that. You can pay beforehand. It's okay. You don't need to pay it on that date. Okay. Let's go to 3-109. Payable to bearer or to order. A promise or order, which is the only types of negotiable instruments. You have a promise to pay or order to pay. Unconditional. Promise to pay is called a promissory note. Unconditional order to pay is called a bill of exchange. I'm going to keep fucking saying it. A promise or order is payable to bearer if it states that it is payable to bearer or to the order of bearer. Now, how would it be to the order of bearer? It's actually very simple. If you pull up a little check here, picture of a check, pay to the order of, if you wrote the fucking word bearer in here, that would be to the order of bearer. Okay? Or otherwise indicated that the person in possession of the promise or order is entitled to payment. That last part's interesting. So you could probably put holder, person in possession of instrument. You could write that in here. Present holder in due course, maybe, possibly would work. I would need to review that. So otherwise indicates that the person in possession of the promise or order is entitled to payment. That's what they're saying there. In any terminology, that would mean that whoever is in possession or the holder or possibly the holder in due course or whatever, even in normal English, whoever possesses, anyone in possession of this note, anyone in possession of this bill of exchange could be along, pay to the order of, anyone in possession of this bill of exchange. You're probably going to throw the tellers for a bit of a loop at the bank, but technically I feel like that would fit this particular point. Otherwise indicates that the person in possession of the promise or order is entitled to payment. Okay? Now again, people think this is all confusing. They think they're in a fucking slave state. You're not. You can write whatever you want on anything, anywhere, and you're the one in control at all times, and you have infinite money, and it's just insane that what you have at your fingertips. That's why people get mad, and I don't. And I love UCC 3. Oh shit, these fucking things fold over. That's why they're so fucking long. Oh shit, bro. Look at this. Oh man. Yo, let's go back. Check this out. Bro, I am the fucking king. Oh, I was wondering why these were so fucking long. I'm like, everything else fits so well. Bro, I am fucking royalty. Look at this. Oh my God. Look at this. This is so fucking badass. Oh, bro, I feel like $1 trillion right now. Payable to bearer, brother. Payable to the bearer. I am payable to the bearer. You can, all you ladies out there, you can negotiate me all you want. Hey, you wanna exchange me? You wanna make me payable to the bearer? Check these out. Oh yeah, bro! Woo! I feel like Super Saiyan, bro. We're gonna go back into this Super Saiyan 4. Hell yeah, let's go. All right, 3-109. Dude, I feel so fucking good right now. Oh, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. This is like a $16 steampunk jacket, and I'm just so goddamn excited. I just feel like the king. I am the king. I mean, I am the king, but I'm really the king now. Okay. I'm still really excited about that part. Pay to the bearer if it doesn't have a state payment is payable to the bearer. I'm still like, oh my god. Okay, anyways. Okay. Now, by the way, you can cross out a due date and just write payable to the bearer. We're going to get into that later. Very exciting. You'd be surprised how much power you have. It's kind of hilarious. So 3-109 does not say to payee. It's payable to the bearer if it doesn't say to payee. That's the blank endorsement I'm always talking about. If you don't say to payee, it's payable to whoever has it. That's what everyone's doing. Everyone's fucking it up. Okay? States that it is payable to or to the order of cash or otherwise indicates it is not payable to identified person. I guess that would be kind of similar, maybe a little different, I'm not sure. A promise or order that is not payable to bearer is payable to order if it is payable to the order of an identified person. To an identified person or order. A promise or order that is payable to order is payable to the identified person. That's just a check. That's a check. That's this, Jane Smith. Payable to Starbucks Inc. Payable to Jane Smith. Payable to Go Fuck Yourself, You Fucking Retard Incorporated. Okay, whatever. Okay. An instrument payable to bearer may become payable to an identified person if it is specifically endorsed. With an I. Pursuant to 3-205, which we will get into. An instrument payable to an identified person may be payable to bearer if it is endorsed in blank, which we're going to get into, which you guys already know. A lot of you guys already know. Okay. Blank endorsement is payable to bearer. I've gone over that a million times before. Going over it again. That's one of the most important parts of all of this. Okay. Okay, 3-110. Identification of person to whom instrument is payable. The person to whom an instrument is initially payable is determined by the intent of the person, whether or not authorized, signing as or in the name or behalf of the issuer of the instrument. Payable is determined by the intent. Okay. The instrument is payable to the person intended by the signer, even if that person is identified in the instrument by a name or other identification that is not of the intended person. Interesting. So that's just saying that if you intended to pay Bob and somehow Jim's name got on there, then it's actually payable to Bob or let me say it again. I forget which name I just used. If you were trying to pay Jim and somehow Bob's name got on there, then Jim is the actual person who it's payable to, I suppose. That's what I'm reading here, okay? If more than one person signs in the name or behalf of the issuer of the instrument and all the signers do not intend the same person, blah, blah, blah. If the signature of the issuer of an instrument is made by automated means, such as check writing machine, the payee, meaning the person who it's payable to, of the instrument is determined by the intent of the person who supplied the name or identification of the payee. Okay, I didn't totally realize this, even though I've read this. It's always good to, again, when you teach, you learn a lot yourself. I'm having to think about this very thoroughly and more in depth and with more sincerity and clarity than just scanning through it on my own, as I've done many times. Subsection C, a person to whom an instrument is payable may be defined in any way, including by name, identifying number, office, or account number for the purpose of determining the holder of an instrument. The following rules apply. If an instrument is payable to an account and the account identified only by number, the instrument is payable to the person to whom the account is payable. If any instrument is payable to an account identified by number and the name of a person, the instrument is payable to the named person. Oh, this is interesting. So sometimes you'll see like for deposit only. Let's say, for example, you're working for a boss and he wants you to go deposit checks. A lot of times, like especially older guys and stuff like that, they'll have like a stamp. It'll say for deposit only, and it'll have the account number, right? This got fucked up, actually, now that I think about it. You could write your name on the endorsement line, and the name that you write would take seniority over the account number that was stamped. Don't do that. That's you can go to prison for doing something like that. But that's what this is saying, which is very interesting. I didn't totally realize that. The name is senior to the account number. So if there's an account number and a name, the name takes seniority. Interesting. See, this isn't all crazy. I don't know. When you start learning all this shit and you start looking at all of it, it starts to be very interesting, and it makes sense, and it's like, wow, it's actually useful and it's actually functional, and it's like, people aren't walking around saying fucking cars and engines and air conditioning systems are fucking overcomplicated pieces of shit and we need to get rid of them. It's like, is all of this complication necessary? I mean, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of fascinating. So in other words, endorse with a name and not an account number, ideally. That's the moral of the story. Okay? If the instrument is payable to a trust, an estate, or a person, which estates and trusts are persons, described as trustee or representative of a trust or estate, the instrument is payable to the trustee, the representative, or a successor of either, whether or not the beneficiary of estate is also named. Okay. A person described as agent or similar representative of the named or identified person. The instrument is payable to the represented person, the representative or successor. Represented person. It brought me here, but I'm not seeing it. One thing that's cool about this video is you are seeing how I do this. This is a live. This is what I do all the time. I used to do it all the time. Nowadays, I don't do it as much. Sit around and just dig through this shit and ask these questions and think these things and look up but you're seeing almost like it's kind of interesting. You're seeing like a live example of the way that I do my, quote, research, end quote. This is how I do it. Okay. So if you've ever wondered, this is a great video. I'm not dressed as well, obviously, typically. This is the very highly well-dressed version. I'll give you a little bit of this for the ladies. Okay, now that I've made all the panties, destroyed all the panties here, we can get back into this. Okay, so let's see here. If an instrument is payable to a trust, estate, an estate, hold on a second, let me just check here. I think this is good. I think we're good. A trust, estate, or person described as trustee or representative of a trust or estate. The instrument is payable to the trustee, the representative, or the successor of either, whether or not the beneficiary or estate is also named. I don't know about that. That one I'm not too sure. Not too sure. A trust and estate or a person described as trustee or representative of a trust or estate. The instrument is payable to the trustee, blah, blah, blah. A person described as agent or similar representative of a named or identified person. The instrument is payable to the represented person, the representative, or successor of the representative. Some representative of a named or identified person. The instrument is payable to the represented person, the representative, or successor of the representative. Oof, I don't know. I tried looking up represented person. I couldn't find it. I know I've seen it somewhere, so I couldn't find it. A fund or organization is not a legal entity. The instrument is payable to a representative or members of the fund or organization. Oh, that's interesting. So a private irrevocable trust might fit this. A fund or organization that is not a legal entity. Then the instrument is payable to the representative of the members of the fund or organization, or an office to the person described as holding an office, right? That's kind of interesting. That shows you right there that a fund or organization can not be a legal entity, which is interesting. It's kind of fascinating. If an instrument is payable to two or more persons alternatively, it is payable to any of them. It may be negotiated, discharged, or enforced by any or all of them in possession of the instrument. If an instrument is payable to two or more persons, not alternatively is payable all of them, may be negotiated, discharged, or enforced by all of them. If an instrument payable to two more persons is ambiguous as to whether it is payable to the persons alternatively, the instrument is payable to the persons alternatively. Okay, that makes sense. So you can have more than one party involved. Okay. Place of payment. Okay. Except as otherwise provided for items in Article 4, an instrument is payable at the place of payment stated on the instrument. I do this, but I didn't realize there was actually any enforcement to it, because the contracts that I have signed for the clients that I have state that the contract is signed in the Amnesty Coalition, the nation of the Amnesty Coalition. That's kind of interesting. Okay, if no place of payment is stated, an instrument is payable at the address of the drawee or maker stated in the instrument. If no address is stated, the place of payment is the place of business of the drawee or maker. If a drawee or maker has more than one place of business, the place of payment is any place of business of the drawee or maker chosen by the person entitled to enforce the instrument. If the drawee or maker has no place of business, the place of payment is the residence of the drawee or maker. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So that means that, it's just if you say where it's at, that's where it's at. If you don't, then here's the default aspects of where it's at then, or where it's signed or where it's payable. Interest. Unless otherwise provided in the instrument, an instrument is not payable with interest. Interest on an interest-bearing instrument is payable from the date of the instrument. Interest may be stated in an instrument as a fixed or variable amount of money, or it may be expressed as a fixed or variable rate or rates. The amount or rate of interest may be stated or described in the instrument in any manner, and may require reference to information not contained in the instrument. If an instrument provides for interest, but the amount of interest payable cannot be ascertained from the description, interest is payable at the judgment rate in effect of the... So this is interesting. This basically just says that interest is just fucking literally whatever you want it to be. It's just totally arbitrary. Just put whatever down. There is no rules or laws. It's just whatever you guys agree to is the fucking interest, which is interesting. Interesting. Okay. Okay, interesting. Interesting. Date of instrument. Okay. An instrument may be antedated. What does that mean? Previous time period. Okay. Okay. An instrument may be antedated or postdated. The date stated determines the time of payment. If the instrument is payable at a fixed period after date. Huh. If an instrument is undated, its date is the date of its issue. Or in the case of an unissued instrument. This is absolutely fascinating. So what this means, an instrument may be antedated or postdated. Huh. So you're going to see here, 3-114, if an instrument contains contradictory terms, typewritten terms prevail over printed terms, and handwritten terms prevail over both, and words prevail over numbers. So the most powerful thing you can write on the instrument is words, not numbers, that are handwritten. Actually, which is interesting. It goes back to what we were reading earlier, where the account numbers are less important and less powerful than the names. So words prevail over numbers. That makes sense. And handwritten words are the god of all negotiable instruments, essentially. Now, going back to this is interesting because let's say you get a bill and you just write on it, you just cross out the due date with a pen and you write in there in words, due on January 13th, 2222. And you would write the words 20-2-20-2. The definition of the word credit means permission to defer payment or performance to a later date. So technically, I'm reading this now, very interesting, very empowering, and I'm realizing you could actually literally write some ungodly, way past the time when you die date on the instrument and send it back, and technically you just rewrote the contract, and legally that bill is no longer due until 2222. Which is hilarious. Didn't realize that. Pretty interesting. That's an interesting way to handle your bills. Just push them out till way past your debt. That's fine. No problem. Apparently that's legal. I mean, a lot of crazy shit's legal, so there we go. Incomplete instrument. Incomplete instrument means a signed writing, whether or not issued by the signer, the contents of which show at the time of signing that it is incomplete, but that the signer intended it to be completed by the addition of words or numbers. Okay, very, very interesting. So it's based off of intention. Did you intend to do this and you just kind of like forgot? They would have to prove that in a court, what was intended, right? An incomplete instrument is an instrument under 3-104, which is the definition of a negotiable instrument. It may be enforced according to its terms if it is not completed, or according to its terms as augmented by completion, if an incompleted instrument is not an instrument. But after completion, the instrument may be enforced. If words or numbers are added to an incomplete instrument without authority of the signer, there is an alteration of the incomplete instrument. Okay. The burden of establishing the words or numbers. That word or numbers were added to incomplete instrument without authority of the signer. Okay, interesting. Joint and several liability contribution. Two or more persons who have the same liability on an instrument as makers, drawers, acceptors, endorsers who endorse at joint payees, or, this is a crazy ass term which we're going to get into later, a type of endorsement, are jointly and severally liable in the capacity in which they sign. So there's a bunch of different endorsers. They're all liable. Let's see here. A party having joint and several liability who pays the instrument is entitled to receive from any party having the same joint and several liability contribution in it. Okay, fine. Whatever. Other agreements affecting instrument subject to applicable law regarding exclusion of proof or contemporaneous. I think I know what that means. Let's just look that up real quick. Existing, occurring, or beginning during the same time. Okay. Or previous agreements, the obligation of a party to an instrument to pay. The instrument may be modified, supplemented, or nullified by a separate agreement of the obligor and a person entitled to enforce the instrument. If the instrument is issued or the obligation is incurred in reliance on the agreement or as part of the same transaction giving rise to the agreement. To the extent an obligation is modified, supplemented, or nullified by an agreement under this section, the agreement is a defense. The obligation of a party to an instrument to pay an instrument may be modified. Okay, the obligation can be modified. That's an ovation. I don't know. People can change contracts. Duh. I don't know. That's statute of limitations. Except as provided in E, an action to enforce the obligation of a party to pay a note payable at a definitive time must be commenced within 6 years after the due date, or a date stated in the note, or if a due date is accelerated within 6 years of the accelerated due date. That's the whole 7 years thing in the bankruptcy, and you hear a lot about that, right? But it's 6 years after the due date, right? If demand for payment is made to the maker of a note payable on demand, an action to enforce the obligation of a party to pay the note must be commenced within 6 years after the demand. If no demand for payment is made to the maker, an action to enforce the note is barred if neither principal nor interest on the note has been paid for a continuous period of 10 years. Okay, interesting. So it is provided in subsection D, an action to enforce the obligation of a party to an unaccepted draft. To pay the draft must be commenced within 3 years after dishonor of the draft, or 10 years after the date of the draft, whichever period expires first. Okay. An action to enforce the obligation of the acceptor of a certified check or the issuer of a teller's check, cashier's check, or traveler's check must be commenced. Okay, whatever, within 3 years, whatever. This is just dates for statute of limitations. Blah, 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 blah. Notice of right to defend action. In an action for breach of an obligation for which a third party is answerable over pursuant to this article or Article 4, the defendant may give the third person notice of the litigation in a record, and the person notified may give similar notice to any other person who is answerable over. As the notice states, 1, that the person notified may come in and defend, and 2, that failure to do so will bind the person notified in an action later brought by the person giving the notice as I don't know. Notice of right to defend. I'm not too sure on that one. I'm curious. What is UCC Article 4? Bank deposits and collections. That's part 1. I think I might end off on part 1 and just do the rest of these as different parts. It's just a lot for me to do, so. That's it. That's all I'm doing today. Fuck off.